Your life wasn't built because of your highest highs, and it wasn't destroyed because of your lowest lows. It was built and destroyed because of what you did in between. Don't believe me? Stick around and find out what you can do to change that. Welcome to Undivided. I'm your host, Adam Maxwell, and we're here to talk about rebuilding your life through faith, discipline, and adventure. Today, we're going to be discussing how men self sabotage. Self sabotage refers to the intentional and unintentional behaviors, actions, and inactions that undermine a person's long term goals, well being, and relationships. It's not when you've reached the top or even when you've slammed to rock bottom that defines you. It's what the work is that you do in the meantime that makes the difference. Oftentimes, people think that God's going to meet them at their highest high or their lowest low, but really, God meets you somewhere in the middle. That's when the real love starts. That's when the real depth begins. Because when you're your highest or when you're your lowest, you're finding yourself in two of the extremes. So you're not even that's not even yourself. That's a version of you. What you do in the middle, in the meantime, the normal version of yourself, that's what matters. That's the meat and potatoes. That's what gets you what you want in life, not the highs. I mean, great. Yeah, they're wonderful. You have to strive for that stuff. And the lows, boy, do you want to stay away from them. But in order to do those two things, you got to do something in the middle that makes that difference. And I think that the biggest part is that there's these myths of the highs and lows, right? Constant happiness is something that people think that is a reality. Like I'm supposed to be constantly happy. I don't want to have these feelings. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to feel like I'm the black sheep or the best person in the room. Either of those things can kind of feel uncomfortable for people. I mean, it's the yin and yang of life, right? Um, it does, you don't need to hit rock bottom to figure out what it's like to feel good. Oftentimes there's a misconception that you have to have some of the worst times in life occur for you to truly appreciate the times where you are the best version of yourself or the greatest things that are happening. But that's as far as from the truth as can be. What that really is a coping mechanism, right? You're going to sit there and try to tell yourself, well, if I don't feel the worst, then how can I appreciate the best? Um, Let me tell you, you can. You don't have to be in that jail cell. You don't have to be sitting in that corner waiting for the next high. You don't have to sit there and do so wrong for such a long period of time in your marriage that you get divorced or your children hate you or your friends don't trust you. You don't have to get there to appreciate the best times in life. Those things can be there for you either way. Um, it when even when you succeed, sometimes failure is the byproduct, right? Here, I worked my butt off. I owned that restaurant, and it was one of the highest moments of my life when I was a part owner of the restaurant. I mean, I was 25 years old. I'm like, look at me, right? Like, look at how awesome this is. I can't believe that I'm doing this. And even that greatest moment in life came to an end because it did. I mean, that's just the way that's how the cookie crumbled, right? Is that ended. And it was sad. And I wished it could have continued on and on and on and on. But there was something that I did in the middle there while I was within the ownership that caused that to fail. And I mean, even, getting my criminal justice degree, I worked my butt off. I barely graduated high school. I graduated like a 1.8 GPA, which, I mean, if you know anything about that, that's pretty flimsy, right? Like, boo. That's how I felt about it. But I went back to college and I had a purpose. I had a reason to, my first son. It gave me a reason to really push hard. And I wanted to do it for myself too. I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't a numbskull. And so I went for my criminal justice degree. I graduated. I graduated top of my class. I was class president. I made the dean's list every semester. I really succeeded. Right, graduated, and then things that were out of my control, the economy crashing because of the housing market, um, I ended up failing, right? Like I couldn't get that job. I couldn't secure it. And there's reasons that I didn't continue after that job, but what do you do, right? And that just gets you into like what are some of the things in my life that have been my lowest lows so I can identify them and the highest highs. But you know, one of my lowest lows that I can remember for sure was the day that I was living on my own when I was 16. The first night. The first night I was laying in bed and there was nobody there. It was crickets. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was laying there, nobody was there. I was all alone. It was one of the lowest moments of my life. And I just cried myself to sleep. But the craziest thing, I woke up the next day, right? Woke up the next day. What are you going to do? You're just going to lay there and cry in your own puddle? Or are you going to get up and you're going to do something about it? That's that in between, right? I could stay at that lowest low if I'd like to. And then what am I going to get out of it? Absolutely nothing. I'm going to sit there in a puddle of tears. And who the hell wants to do that? Not me. I'm not going to sit there and sit in my own self-loathing. I mean, I have, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't done that in my life, but I had to get up the next day and I had to go to school and I had to continue living my life. Nothing could stop that. It's an immovable force. The days keep going. And if you just lay there and do nothing, you're going to stay in that lowest low. So you got to get out of it. You got to work your way to the middle ground. What's next? How can I build? And how can I have stability? And I want to sit and tell you all these lowest lows. I've got 100 of them. It feels like, you know, um, when I was partying, once I was a little bit older, after I graduated high school, I moved into lacrosse and I was partying all the time, right? After every night that I partied and got high on ecstasy, it it drained every bit of happiness out of me, right? Every single morning I would wake up after that, it felt like one of the lowest lows of my life. And, I remember getting up one day and I had to go to work and I went to work and I worked for a company that I had to drive around. And as I was driving, like fell asleep at the wheel. I had to pull over and I actually pulled over in a church parking lot in the middle of nowhere, and fell asleep there for several hours. Nobody knew where I was. It was before cell phones really had great service. There was no service. I couldn't call anybody, but I knew at that moment the right thing to do was to just go to sleep. Um, and that was a slow crawl to being fired from that job, another lowest low. Um, and I tried to work my way out of that pit again. And as soon as I did, what's next? I went to jail for the second time. Um, and while I was sitting in that jail cell, all I could see from my window, I'd peek out and I'd glance around the corner and I could see the clock. It was a digital clock on the wall, but I could only see the minutes. Uh, so it felt like an eternity. I know it wasn't, and I know there's guys out there that have been in jail a lot longer. But I think that if anybody can agree on anything, is that even a minute in jail is the longest minute of your life. Um, but I chose after that. I never wanted to go back there, and I didn't. So I'm proud of that. But it's still the lowest points in life, right? Um, Losing my home and my son with my older boy's mom when things didn't work out. But what caused that, right? Was it automatically a low? No, it was fine for years, right? Things were just cruising right along, and that self sabotage occurred, right? I felt like things are going good, so when's the bad going to come? It's on its way. It's got to be coming. You're always kind of thinking that in your head, and so when I lost that home and I lost my son in my life every single day, I kind of the lack of care, the lack I felt worthless, and I didn't really give myself to him at that moment. I just felt like, you know, um, kind of like a piece of crap. And she moved away. She moved, a couple hours away from where we were, and I don't blame her for it. She did because I wasn't there in that moment, and she needed to move somewhere where she was comfortable. But that separation from my son, even harder to deal with, So it just kept happening over and over. It's just this reoccurring theme of these low moments throughout my life, and I'm not saying they're over. You know, when my parents pass, that's going to be another low moment. But what am I going to do in that moment? Am I going to just let it consume me, or am I going to, you know, stand up and do better? Am I going to stand up and be there for somebody? Am I going to stand up and spend more time with my family that matters? Right? You're not going to lay on your deathbed and look back and think to yourself, boy, I sure would have wished I would have spent more time on my cell phone. That's not where you're going to be. You're playing video games. It's going to be like, boy, I wish I'd have spent more time with my family. I wish I would have made more phone calls and said, I love you. I wish I would have, spent a little more time playing catch with my kids, or working on trying to find a life mate, somebody who's going to be there for you and help you through this life. Having somebody with you is one of the best things that you can do. Um, and you go from the lowest lows, like I had to sell my Harley, wah, 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 right? Like poor Adam, you had to sell your Harley. And that was after I split up with my older boy's mom. And at that time, I like blamed her and blamed the situation. I didn't blame myself for any of it. I just kind of pretended like it was everybody's fault but my own. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made for many years of my life. That self pity, or um, the victim mentality that these people out there these days are playing. I think that we're all getting a little bit sick and tired of it, right? I mean, and moving down the line, when I was, running that restaurant and I was spending all my time there, and my wife at that time, my girlfriend, was busy graduating college, and I was in a career there, right? Like I was right in it. Um, and she decided that she wanted to go fulfill some of her dreams, right? She wanted to move to the cities. She wanted to check that out, and she didn't want to leave me, but she knew that she needed to in order to find herself, and um, that's what happened. So I lost her, and it was due to choices that I was making in that time, and I she left, and then I got into a fight with my landlord outside of my apartment and lost the partnership with the business, and then I had to sell my car, and then because of this situation with my landlord, I didn't have an apartment, and I mean, like, I could just keep going. I think that we've all had those moments. And just recently, the one of the big ones for me was struggling with some lower back pain. I herniated a disc in my back, and I had um, excruciating sciatic nerve pain that pretty much debilitated me. I could hardly work. It's actually one of the big reasons I'm sitting in front of you here today. So, with that said, you have your lowest lows, but you need to work your way out of them and work towards that higher end of your life, those high sides of it. You know, like I say, that my highest highs, I can go down the list, and they mirror the lowest lows, right? Like here I am living on my own at 16, but then I graduated high school, did it myself. Highest high, having my first kid, a beautiful, wonderful, amazing thing, like one of the greatest feelings in life. And then losing the relationship and losing that side of my life, which I felt like at the time was going to be forever, but nothing's forever, guys. And then the ownership of the restaurant, highest high, bam, I got the ownership of this restaurant. And then because of how life works sometimes and the choices that I made, I lose it, So here I'm at my highest high. And then in the middle, somewhere in the middle, I was making decisions that brought me to one of my lowest lows, right? Losing my wife and her moving away. But because I didn't stop and I started working harder and I stopped blaming everybody else and I started looking inward, right? That's the big moment. I worked my ass off and I rode a bike every day. And Lauren happened to show up one day, and we ended up getting back together at that time, and I got my wife back. I got my woman back because I didn't give up. I was showing the world and myself that I was valuable, and not everybody else. You can tell everybody else in the world you're valuable. I'm valuable. Look at me. But until you just do the thing, because people are watching, your loved ones are watching, they're listening. They can see, right? We all know how to lie. We all know how to detect lies. And so they can see through that crap all day long, right? So I get my woman back, and after losing her, and then I'm back to this highest high. And then I ended up getting married. Amazing, wonderful, the highest moment, one of the highest moments of my life, and my second child coming along and starting and running my own successful business, my construction business, after leaving the restaurant field. And leaving the restaurant field felt like one of my lowest moments too, right? So you're going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows, and they're going to come and go. But as I move down this list, and even myself just like looking at it, because obviously I'm not going to remember everything and I need to keep myself on task, right? Otherwise, like I said, sometimes my brain becomes this messy desk of papers. And as I'm reading these highs kept getting better and my lows kept getting easier. And I think it had a lot to do with working on not self sabotaging, um, working harder on myself, and fighting through that dangerous middle that everybody is afraid of. Because, like I said, your highs don't define you, and neither do your lows. It's what you do in between that matters. Because if you work hard in the middle always, that middle can just be the high, right? Or it can be the low. It's your choice. And the most recent thing that, is one of the highest moments in my life is I had surgery. And that's why I'm here. I had spine surgery and they went in and fixed me up. And I then have 12 weeks of recovery. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? And before this all happened, everything slowly started to take place. Things were placed in front of me. I met people. Mark Kay, he's a conservative podcaster. Um, I just happened to make a comment on Facebook and he reached out to me, and I thought it was a joke. Um, I thought that it was going to be some scam, and it ended up not being. And I joined a group called Gain with Mark Kay, and it has helped me get to where I am today with my podcast, and it's amazing. Um, Without it, would I have gotten here? Yeah, it probably would have taken me a year or more, but instead I'm knocking it out of the park. I feel like sometimes, and obviously other times that little voice in the back, that demon in the back says, "Are you sure anybody's even going to listen to you?" No, I'm not, and that's okay. As long as I can be there for you guys and try to help one person, um, that's all that really matters. Again, here we go, getting off track. The highs and the lows and the dangerous middle. The dangerous middle is what really separates the men from the boys, right? Um, because like when you do win, when you are making progress in your middle, sometimes you celebrate and you pat yourself on the back and you're like, look at me go. And then you kind of put her in neutral and and coast down the hill, right? You're at that high, you're at the tippy top of the mountain, and you're just, this is the best. I am the best, or whatever it may be. And good. I hope you feel that way. Just don't go running around sitting on social media screaming that out loud. Otherwise, people are going to see right through you. Um, but you just tend to get comfortable um, after those big successes, and like I say, it's like you put the car in neutral and you just coast down the hill, right? And if you put it in neutral, you start coasting down the hill. Where are you headed? Down. And if it's in neutral and you're just kind of cruising along, and say the hill starts to incline, right? And you're headed, you got another good thing coming, it's just going to come to a stop. And then when you start to drift again, and Maybe you start drinking more or going out or spending your money you're making, or, you're so successful that you're not at your business all the time and your employees are running it and they run it right into the ground for you because nothing against them, but if you're not showing that you're there to show up, then they're going to take advantage, right? If you don't care, they don't care. It's like anytime I was ever in charge in a kitchen or on a construction crew, I'm willing to get my hands just as dirty as you, just to show you that nothing's beneath me, right? I'll get in there and I'll clean a fryer just as good as anybody else out there. I could run circles around people, I'm sure of it. But if you don't show the people that work with you or below you, if you will, right? If you're a manager, you have you got your people that work beneath you, as far as the ladder's concerned. Um, you got to show them that you're willing to get out there and you're willing to do the same thing, right? And you tend to get comfortable because of the successes, and you take it easy and you rest from all the hard work, and you're like, well, I nailed it. I what else do I need to do? Well, you just need to keep going. You need to why there's enough glass ceiling out there as it is, right? There's enough glass ceiling that's made out there that we have no control over. Why would you build your own, right? Why would you build this own glass ceiling above you to just get smooshed up against, and you do that to yourself? We already have to fight the fight as it is, right? There's already people out there doing that to us. Why do it to you? That's the biggest question. So then you begin to drift, like we talked in the last episode. You drift and you um, start drinking, or like I say, partying more, or taking the boat out all the time, or buying things that you can't afford or you think you can, but you haven't really nailed it down yet. And that shiny new feeling rubs off, and said, you go buy that new truck and the truck gets a ding in it or it gets a scratch and it just starts to fade. You know what I'm saying? Um, some of them things just happen, and that shiny new isn't new anymore. The fresh smell of that new truck isn't smelling so good anymore. And then that is when you either keep hustling or you let the losses come. The self-sabotage comes into place. You start going on an emotional roller coaster, doom scrolling, um, seeing the non-reality while you're doom scrolling and thinking that, why isn't my life like that? Why don't I have a new car? Why don't I have a nicer truck? You just bought one. Don't forget that, as I was just talking about. Um, and you start to feel, everything kind of close in on you, a little bit of depression, negative self-talk, like, why am I not better than this? And you start to work your way down that mountain, right, in neutral, and here you go. uh, but you need to keep your vehicle in drive every single day. You can't let up. Why let up? If you're a bodybuilder, why do you stop lifting? Oh, that's good enough, I've lost enough weight. Why lose enough weight? Why not get more healthy? Why not, we've eaten really well all the time. Well, we can eat out and eat deep fried food more often. You know what I mean? Why take yourself back there? Um, and then you start to get this, like I said, negative self-talk. You're talking down to yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, geez, what am I doing? You start to see the bags under the eyes, and you don't feel right. And then you start procrastinating on all the things that you're supposed to be doing, whether it's with your business or with your wife and your kids, or, like that tree fort you're supposed to build for your kids, or the bathroom remodel that you're supposed to do for your wife, or, just the things you're supposed to do, the work on your truck for yourself. And you start to self-medicate to squash those feelings down. um and you start to feel like, life's best moments are behind you again, and you start to feel like the best moments require suffering, and that's a coping mechanism, right? Like, oh, you have to go through these hard times to feel good again, and you don't. That's the misconception. And so there's a lot of things that you got to do in order to make that middle worth it, right? um, the musts, the must do's in the middle that you have to manage. Again, like I say, with the drifting, you got to wake up every day picking and choosing responsibility. Not doom scrolling right away. Maybe go for a walk in the morning, give yourself a little downtime, right? Do a little meditation if that's what you're into. Grab the Bible, that's what I do every morning. um, I start reading in it and reading the Bible. I'm going through John right now, and I read 3 chapters, and I go back and I write down the things that I learned and understanding, and my favorite verse of that chapter, the first one that I read, and then the next day I read the next 3 chapters, and I go back and I just I just give myself that time. So you got to stay disciplined, even when life is good, right? Like stay disciplined. Don't let up. Keep that car and drive. Don't drift anymore. God, like if I'd have chose that years ago, where would I be? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I could be pissed about it. Maybe I'd have been an astronaut. Probably not. But you never know. You could have gone to the moon if you wouldn't have given up then. I love my life. I love my wife, my family, the home that I live in. Uh, don't forget, the home is where the heart is. It's not a house. It's a home. And so the musts in the middle. I like to say the musts in the middle. You got to stay disciplined, even when life is good. Um, don't drift back to the lackluster existence, just thinking that you need to do that in order to get to the next best. Just keep chalking it up to better, better, better. Don't ever give in, right? Don't settle for just good enough. Excel to the next level and never stop, never stop. And, just try to trust yourself. Take that time every day to do that meditation that I was just talking about. Give yourself 50 minutes. That first 50 minutes is going to be chaos inside your brain. The next 50 minutes, you're going to be able to think about the next thing to do, the next action. And then after you're done with that, journal it, man. Start writing these things down. If you don't get it out of your head, it gets lost. Our brains are just always going. We're overstimulated. Sometimes I'm doom scrolling even though I'm doing well, right? Like sometimes we just are like, oh, I just need a second. Ugh. And you pull out your phone and you start doom scrolling like a maniac. I don't know how many times I've been like, I'm gonna check the weather. Next thing you know, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, and I'm like, how did I get here? Get me out of this. And sometimes you can get yourself into a nasty little cycle, you know. Um, and the other part is that next level doesn't always have to pertain to your job or your career, right? It can be all kinds of different things. Um, it can be making your lawn look better, learning how to garden, learning how to can. My wife and I just started learning how to can this last year, 2 years ago. And we've had some mishaps in the process. Um, Not to say it almost happened, but our canning pot almost exploded one time. It was pretty interesting, but we make mistakes. But it doesn't have to always go back to your career because people are like, geez, work, work, work. And the other thing is you got to get that work. You got you got to stop making work a bad word. What we're good at, man, is working, man. We're so good at it. We're awesome at working and doing more with our lives. I mean, people wonder where some of these last names come from. It's because they were good at doing the things like, shoemaker. What do you think they did? Right? And there's carpenters out there, last name that, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of weird things that have happened in names over time, but we don't need to get into that. But we're made to work. We're made to provide. We're made to have purpose. So don't forget it. But it doesn't always have to be work that you're after to that next level, right? Get better at something that you've always wished to get better at, playing guitar, reading, right? I have been reading so much more lately. One, I have the time because I'm recovering, but I just I'm getting so much better at it and I love it now. It was something that I was like, well, I don't like to read. It's because I never gave it the time. And you got to find things that you like and you're interested in. So that's huge too, right? And like I said earlier, nobody's ever gonna, on their deathbed, they're not gonna be like, boy, I really wish I would have done more of nothing. You're gonna look back and wish you would have done more of something, right? Um, so do that. Don't don't sit back and do nothing, right? Got to be disciplined. Stay disciplined. Stay moving. Um, Find something to improve upon. Number 2 is stay moving. Find something to improve upon, whether that's music, education, gardening. I don't know if you guys have seen this or whatever, but we've all I went to college twice. I haven't even talked to you guys about the second time I went back to college to prove to my wife that I wasn't a fool. Um, I wanted her to know that I was smart because she's so damn smart. I didn't think I was on her level, right? I was, what do they say? I was kicking outside my coverage, if you will. So I went back to college to try to prove to her that I was smart. But nowadays you can go on and what is it? Jordan Peterson has a online deal nowadays. He's got online education that you can do for I guess $399 a year or something like that, and you can just learn gardening, learning how to work on small engines. Go buy a mini bike. I have two, three, four of them, and plus a motorcycle. I love that stuff, and I didn't give myself enough time with that, and I wish I would have. But I've got the rest of my life to do it. Keep on moving. Don't ever stop. Again, don't tell yourself that you need the lows to enjoy the highs. It's a coping mechanism. You're just trying to tell yourself that you need to feel the low to appreciate the high, which in some cases maybe, but I really don't think that's a necessity. Um, and literally stay moving. When I lost the restaurant and I had to sell my car and I literally had hardly a pot to piss in, guys. Um, I had jumped on a bicycle and rode it to work every single day. And at first I saw it as a curse. I was like, yeah, I hate this bike. Then I was like, nah. I jumped on that thing and I started making it something that I enjoyed. I started going for these huge long bike rides. Nothing crazy, no Tour de France for this guy, but 80-mile bike ride. I did was a Pearl Street Brewery out of La Crosse. They did Tour de Pearl, where you'd ride your bike, and this is a long time ago. Ride your bike to these establishments, and then you'd go in and you have a punch card, and you'd have a beer and have a punch card, and that was fun. It was something to do, but just find something that keeps you moving. Don't isolate. Don't become sedentary. Get out there, go for a hike, whatever it is. Take your kids for a hike. I mean, if you don't have children, hopefully someday you get to be blessed with them and it's worth it. I promise. But I have a rule with my kids is I have 10 minutes for you, right? If my kid comes up to me and says, Dad, I really would like to play catch or whatever, and I'm in the middle of something or whatever that's not that important, I've got 10 minutes for you. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And oftentimes that 10 minutes turns into more. And it's that time that you'll never forget. Um, you think back when you're a kid, some of the memories that you have, sure, I went to Valley Fair and this and that, but some of the memories I remember the most, like with my dad is fishing, um, sitting in the deer stand, hunting, or just riding in the truck. Like if I close my eyes, riding in the truck with my dad, one of the things that I remember most is that first the first light of that cigarette that he would light. I always loved the smell of that. Um, and it just some of them things that just make you smile. And the biggest part about it too is that I wish I would have grounded myself in faith a little bit more earlier in life. I had more faith in the chaos than I did in true faith in Jesus. So three is to stay grounded with faith. Don't let your emotions control you every single day. Trust in the promises of God rather than living in doubt and fear, right? The promises of God give you heaven, it gives you eternal life, it gives you something to look forward to, meaning and purpose. Instead of letting your rage and your emotions control you, lean into that, lean into the Bible, lean into you know uh, some of the scripture that you can read, whether it's the Psalms, whether as you're going through the Bible and you're learning it, find some of these passages that really hit home with you and try to memorize them and take the time to do that. Deepen your biblical knowledge. I think it's super important, and some people might sit here and listen to this part and think, meh, I don't need that. Um, I promise you, you do. There's no question. As soon as I accepted God into my life, um, nothing was perfect, but it was definitely better. There's no question there. If you live your life believing chaos is the beginning, and chaos is what gives us what we have. Big Bang Theory is chaos, guys. Big Bang, where'd that come from? Uh, the ocean sloshing until things came about. All these crazy ideas. It takes more faith to believe that now for me, without a doubt. But living your life believing that chaos is what began the earth, well, then you're just going to live your life in chaos too. There's no definitives here, right? Again, I'm no preacher, and I'm not going to pretend to be, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything that there is to know, but I continue to strive to know it, and to share the word with you because it is important. Um, and I don't know, if some of your guys' lowest lows maybe had to do with the church and being failed by that, or some of the nasty things that have come from it. But don't forget, the devil lives everywhere, right? He's everywhere, and there's times where you think that you're gonna, get away from it, but that little voice in the back of your head, the living on the internet and finding videos, the P word. Everybody, says the P word instead of the corn, uh, that that can draw a guy in and make you believe that's life. The delivery girl at the door, or being the tradesman with the pretty lady, or whatever it may be. I don't want to get into it, but those are fantasies, and that's not reality. Um, so lean back into God and get away from that. If you feel like that you're going to get weak, just grab onto your Bible and dive in, even if it's just for a couple minutes, because a lot of those situations where you have those temptations in life, it's fleeting moments, and if you can just get past them, you can move on to the next good day. Um, and back to finding some time to meditate or to clear your mind. Um, Once your mind's clear, pray, talk to him, talk to the Lord, have a conversation, make him your friend, make him that friend that I talked about before, make him that friend that will pick up the phone and come get you in the dark of the night and save you from the situation that you're in. Have that conversation with him. Don't ever give up on it. You'll hear him. I promise you. And sometimes you think, oh, that ain't him. Oh, it is. I promise you. It is him. Um, and consistency is the biggest thing. Being consistent when you're in the middle, right? So if you continue to be consistent when you're in the middle of all of this, in the middle of life, in between the highs and the lows, if you're consistent, it beats the intensity of the extremes without a question. If you're consistent in the middle, your life will be fulfilling. It will feel like you have purpose, and you'll continue to achieve a higher high. Like I said, don't build a glass ceiling for yourself, right? You already have enough to fight against every single day. Wake up each day with purpose, choose responsibility, choose a better version of yourself, and it'll take you a long way, And sorry, give me just 1 second. Excuse me. I'll edit that out just a little bit. I'll just put a little, like some elevator music so you don't hear me slurping on my water. But a fella gets thirsty, right? All right. So you got to work your way through the middle, right? That's the musts for the middle. 1, stay disciplined, don't forget it. 2, keep moving, don't get stagnant. And 3, stay grounded in your faith, whatever it may be. To me, it's Jesus Christ. Without a question, you may have something else that keeps you grounded, but don't let go of it, whatever religion it may be. I highly suggest Christianity, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to do. Um, I just know what worked for me. And if it worked for me, I can assure you it can work for you. But this all, those 3 things, that really ties back to all your relationships in life. Um, whether it's your friends and family, your family doesn't need the high moments of your life. They need your stability, whether it's your sister, brothers, or moms and dads, or your children in general. If your kids have consistency and stability in their life, they are going to be happier than if you hit this high moment here and there. Obviously it's beautiful to have them celebrate with you these achievements, but if you continue to be stable and you continue to choose responsibility, you're going to have more high moments in your life. Um, so bring that stability to your family, and you will continue to have more of your better moments, best moments of life. If you're stable, everybody's going to see it. Your children are going to learn from it, and you got to lead your family, lead the people around you, and they'll emulate that behavior. Show your kids how to be a stable hero rather than, an unstable villain. Um, like I said, think back to the memories with your family that stick out the most. Close your eyes for a second. Think about those moments that are the best, right? They're the simple moments, they're the middle ground, they're the stability in the life, right? When you moved into that nice house for the first time and you felt like you had a home. Um, and that really is a huge thing for most people, is to have that stability. So don't forget the stability. But I can assure you one thing, that faith is definitely an anchor for stability. When your life is great, when it's bad, um, when you're content, uh, faith is always there, right? When your moments are fleeting, when you feel like things are going bad, there's nobody there for you, faith is still there. It never leaves you. That's that main anchor, the thing that you can assure is eternal, right? Like I said, you got all these other anchors you can try to anchor into, people to help you, but many of them are temporary, no matter how you cut it. You know, don't be fleeting, never lying, never hiding from yourself, and always staying solid for the ones around you. And if you don't have anybody around you, I'm here. There's always somebody, but I can assure you that God will be there, always solid, never hiding from you. Um, And I can tell you for sure, without a doubt in my mind, that even through the bad and the good and the worsts and the lows of life, I would never look back. I'll never go back to not having faith. Without God, I would feel entirely empty. We all have that void in the center of our chest, right? We have that void, that empty feeling, like what is missing. And if you don't have God in your life, that's what it is. I can promise you. So, you know, going through all these situations and stories and trying to figure out what's going to make it better. If you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut right now, guys, um, do something about it. If you feel like you're flying high, then maintain that and work towards it. Um, if you feel like you're a stick in the mud, you know, reach out and have somebody pull you out. It's all you can do. Because we spend most of our time in the middle, right? Between the highs and the lows. And that is where life is decided. So as the highs will come and go and the lows will do the same, um, the middles are what make a man. They're what make the dreams come true. So if this is hitting home with you, or somebody that this is going to be good for, please share it with somebody. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're trying to rebuild yourself and you don't know how, please message me the word reset and we can talk. We'll get a hold of each other somehow. I'm here for you as long as you're here for me. We need to get back to community, because that's what matters. We need to get ourselves back together, talking, being there for each other. And that's what we're working towards. Getting away from having to have the high highs and the low lows. We're going to live together in the middle, and that's where God's going to meet us. So, without a question, I'm your host, Adam Maxwell. And next week and every week after that, I'm going to be here as long as you are. And don't forget to like and subscribe the podcast, share it with somebody that you know that's going to love to hear this or needs this message, or somebody who doesn't need the message. You just want to share this with them. It would mean the world to me. Help me find a way to help everybody that's out there. I know that's an impossible task, but I love you all. And I'm going to be here, your host, Adam Maxwell with Undivided. I love you guys. Peace out.
We'll see. Beautiful Hawaiian day. Raining like a son of a. It's beautiful around here though. Whoop. Watch out for the roots. They'll get you. Oh, the rain is just fucking falling here. What did I get us into? The good shit, that's what. The raindrops are just monstrous.
Where are we going?
I don't know. How far does it go is the question. I mean, I don't want to get us into any trouble here.